Welcome to this video explaining electrophysiology of heart muscle cells. If you want to understand how cardiotonics exert their action on a heart cell, you will have to know the details regarding electrophysiology of heart. Now, what do you call or what do you mean by electrophysiology of heart is? In this section, we understand how actually impulses are generated in heart, and these excitatory impulses are carried across the heart wall, to which the heart muscles respond. What happens is, when an impulse is generated in one portion of heart, which is always sinoauricular node present in right atrium, now this impulse goes on traversing the pathways which are present between this atrium to ventricle and the walls of ventricle. Along the passage of this particular impulse, the muscles, cardiac muscles, they go on getting excited, depolarized, and then in response to this depolarization, there is contraction of the muscles. So when impulse is generated here, initially atrium or atria will respond to that particular impulse. They will respond by contracting to this particular impulse, which is generated in sinoauricular node. And then as it passes along this specific type of tissues, conductive tissues in the heart goes on responding to this passing impulse. It responds by contraction. Here we have to understand two terms which are used to describe the action potential across the cell membrane of myocardium. First term is hyperpolarization. Hyperpolarization means there is decrease in electrical potential across the cell membrane of cardiac cells. Generally, for normal cardiac cells, the resting potential is minus 90 millivolts. It is minus 90 millivolts, means it is towards the negative side. And when the heart cell gets depolarized, its action potential, means potential, electrical potential difference across the cell membrane is up to 20 millivolts, which is positively charged. Why this happens is because along this process of repolarization and depolarization, there is exchange of different types of ions across the cell membrane. Ions like calcium, potassium and sodium. Dependent upon the exchange of these ions, the action potential across the cardiac cell differs. Cardiac cell membrane differs. Now, in heart, just now I mentioned that there is a specific type of tissues, conductive tissues, which form a fine network of particular type of conductive cells, and these cells or this particular network of conductive tissue is having capacity to generate its own impulse automatically, and to transmit it from one place to another, from auricle to ventricle in the heart. Okay. Now, we have to remember that the sinoauricular node is present, SA node is present in right atrium, and from here impulses are generated. From here depolarization of heart starts. We are going to see why it starts automatically. Right? And from the sinoauricular node, the impulse which is generated is carried to atrioventricular node. Now this process has been nicely explained in this video. Okay? This is sinoauricular node which is present in right atrium of the heart, and another is similar tissue is present, or center is present between atrium and ventricle in atrioventricular septum, which is called as AV node. Okay. The pathways which connect SA node with AV node are called as internodal atrial pathways. Okay. Internodal atrial pathways. Now when impulse is generated here, it is carried to AV node, and then from AV node to bundle of His and Purkinje fibers, the impulse is conducted towards the whole membrane of heart. Okay. Now this is a this SA node will generate impulse. It will be carried to whole heart, and in response to such kind of impulse, atria and ventricles will be contracting in a particular sequence. This is how continuously impulse is generated in SA node. It is carried to walls of ventricle, and to this impulse the heart muscles respond. Here, three important terms we have to remember. Heart muscle cells show three properties. One is automaticity, second is excitability, and third is refractory period. Automaticity, excitability or rhythmicity, and refractory period. Automaticity means they have capacity to generate their own impulse, SA node related activity. Rhythmicity means they are having excitability and in a specific rhythm they keep on beating. And refractory period is that period in which a cardiac muscle cell does not respond to any external stimulus. If suppose you stimulate heart electrically when it is getting contracted, when its ventricles are contracted, then heart does not respond to such external stimulus when during the period of ventricular contraction. Now this particular period is called as refractory period. Okay. Another important word about heart is syncytium. Syncytium. The meaning of this word syncytium is it is a cell which is having multiple nuclei and only one cytoplasmic material, one set of cytoplasmic material. This is not true about heart. There are distinct cells in the cardiac muscle fibers, but they are separated by a very thin disc which is present between two cells, and that disc is called as intercalated muscles. Now this disc is very permeable to all sorts of ions, and because of which whatever happens in one end of the cardiac muscle is easily carried towards the another end of cardiac muscle, or whatever happens in one part of the heart is carried easily towards the whole heart. That is the reason why we say that heart behaves as if it is a single cell containing multiple nuclei. So, intercalated disc makes it, or its permeability makes the heart behave like this, behave like a single cell having multiple nuclei. The beauty of this cardiac cells is, even if you isolate a single cell and see it under microscope, you will see that each cardiac muscle cell spontaneously beats. In this nice video, you can see a cardiac muscle cell which has been isolated, and action potential across this muscle is being recorded. Okay, there is a technique called as patch clamp technique which enables us to count electrical potential across this cell membrane. See this video once again. In this single cardiac muscle cell, automatically it is beating, and this cell there is change in electrical potential when it is beating. Okay. So this curve shows how electrical potential changes from around minus 90 to plus 20. Okay. This is how even single cardiomyocyte acts, and the same is the behavior of the whole heart. This explains how nicely the heart muscle cells show the properties of automaticity, rhythmicity, and refractory period also.